Now, let's continue the discussion of our top story, and that's on Portugal's political and fiscal predicament following more ratings cut in the last 24 hours, while speculation is growing that the country will be forced into a bailout. Now, alongside me is Stephen Bell, chief economist at hedge fund GLC. Stephen, thank you so much for coming in. I haven't spoken to one person who has told me Portugal can survive without a bailout.
Well, that's because they can't, I don't think. And you get into this situation where the interest rate you're borrowing at goes up because people are worried, and that makes you less solvent, less sustainable, so the interest rate goes up. So it's worse. It's a vicious circle. And there's political reasons. I mean, the Prime Minister, Socrates, has tried very hard to put in place an austerity package that would have enabled them to survive.
Yeah. Parliament wasn't having any of that.
Parliament wouldn't have it. So here we have this strange interregnum where he's got this caretaker government, potentially for some time, 2 months, I believe. And can he negotiate a move into the EFSF, or what is going to happen? But it's uncertainty, which markets don't like. The fundamentals, though, is that deficit's too big, their economy's too weak, and to solve one, they exacerbate the other one.
But see, we seem to be in an easier position now than we were 4 or 5 months ago, because there's a strong European will. Sure, Angela Merkel's horse trading and trying not to put too much money in this fund at the beginning, but we know that Europe stands behind to act. So is it going to have a lot less repercussions on the rest of the markets if we see a bailout from Portugal, or if things turn a little bit sour over there?
That's a very good point, and I think that the market has been very discriminating between the different European countries that have fiscal problems. So Spain's the important one. The line in the sand has to be drawn this side of Spain, and Portugal, it's an important country, but it's tiny.
Small, yeah.
Ireland, important but small. Greece, three together would be tough. Add Spain, and it's too big for the German banks probably, and lots of other banks. So the line must be drawn somewhere, and I actually think they'll all get through, by the way, with lots of hiccups and fears and problems, but I think they will get through. But you can have all the bailouts you want, you have to address the fundamental fiscal problem. You have to turn the budget into a primary surplus. In other words, that's the deficit without interest payments, so that you've got any chance of repaying the interest and paying down your debt. That's the first stage. They've got to get there. And when the economy is as weak as it is, it's tough.
Yeah, and actually there's a lot of revolt out there. People who say, well, why do I need to take so much pain? We haven't had these austerity measures in 30 years. But I guess at the same time, Steve, do we need to actually restructure a lot of the banks? That's what a lot of economists are saying, is that we should go out front and actually, take haircuts, hurt the bondholders, but at least we get the big problems out of the way.
I think you've put your finger on the exact critical issue in the next few days, because on Monday, the Spanish Cajas, and I have to learn to pronounce that properly, that's the hardest part in this, they have to present their plans. Yeah. And the Bank of Spain, if they're not happy, they will force these banks to recapitalise. So I think the Spanish approach has been extremely important on all fronts, and the social cohesion, the willingness of the people to take these. Nobody's happy with austerity measures, but the Spanish people have swallowed this medicine. They almost seem to feel, yeah, I guess it was necessary, and that is the biggest of these troubled countries and much the most important. Portugal is a lot less further down the road.
Stephen, hold that thought, because while Europe's leaders wrestle with the deepening debt crisis, they must also contend with the debate over when to raise rates to quell inflation. Well, HSBC says much can be learned from Japan's economic past. While the bank's chief economist, Stephen King, says that Europe must avoid the monetary mistakes made by Japan back in 2000. He says the Bank of Japan tightened policy and increased rates too quickly, only to drop them again when the economy slowed, something that Europe must avoid or risk stunting the recovery. Now, Stephen, we're speaking also to a lot of economists. They're saying actually Jean-Claude Trichet may be going down the long line, because we are hearing calls and himself saying that there will be rates very soon. Possibly the economy won't be ready for interest rates.
Well, what one has to recognise is Monsieur Trichet has a mandate to control inflation. He doesn't have a mandate to have counter-cyclical monetary policy. We might all wish he did, but he doesn't. And he's meeting his mandate. He also has to calm a number of particularly German members of his governing council, but also other people who think that they're running into a dangerous road with all these bailouts. There's a bit of a quid pro quo here. And the fact is that inflation has gone up, and he's worried about rising commodity prices and all the rest of it. Actually, if there was any doubt that he was going to raise rates, that doubt went yesterday, with the purchasing managers indices, the best short-term indicator of the economy, more accurate than the official statistics in many cases, and both the services and the manufacturing for Germany and France were firm. And inflation is too high for him, so he's told us he's going to raise rates.
I understand. I mean, it's not his mandate, but still, if we don't have a growing Europe, he's going to get a lot of flack for that.
I agree. And people still think that he precipitated the recession by raising rates a few years ago. I mean, I think that's baloney, by the way, but never mind. Well, he's only, I think, going to have modest rate rises. We'll see. And if the economy responds properly and there is a slowdown, then clearly he won't have to raise rates very much if inflation responds. So I think the issue is fairly straightforward. He's signalled it clearly, and it's not good for the peripheral countries, but domestic demand growth is reasonably firm in core Europe, and that's wonderful for them.
All right, Steve, thank you so much. Stephen Bell there.